Good day, everybody. Welcome to the Bible in a Year 2021. And before I even progress any further, I just want to make my apologies. There has been some mix-up with the labeling. This is going to be day 189. But some of you may have been looking at this before I went back and corrected some of the labeling. Somehow we duplicated the same day. And so the numbers have been off a bit, but this is day 189, and we are reading 2 Kings 15 and 2 Chronicles 26. So picking up 2 Kings chapter 15 here, verses 1 to 3, we are introduced to the longest reigning king, 52 years. 52 years. Some of the best kings, such as King David, only had 40 years. And here we have Azariah, also known as Uzziah. And we're told Azariah, Amaziah's son, became king of Judah in the 27th year of Israel's king Jeroboam. He was 16 years old when he became king, and he ruled for 52 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jechaliah. She was from Jerusalem. He did what was right in the Lord's eyes, just as his father Amaziah had done. So we're going to be looking into some of these things here. We see Zechariah here in 2 Kings 15, 8 to 9. Zechariah had 6 months as king, and then he was assassinated. So Zechariah, Jeroboam's son, became king of Israel in Samaria. Okay, this is Jeroboam the second. So Zechariah, Jeroboam's son, became king of Israel in Samaria in the 38th year of Judah's king Azariah. He ruled for 6 months. He did what was evil in the Lord's eyes, just as his ancestors had done. He didn't deviate from the sins that Jeroboam, Nebat's son, had caused Israel to commit. So we go through a whole bunch of kings here. It's just not a lot of stability. But we see here what we just read. Verse 12 tells us this is about a promise kept and a prophecy fulfilled. So this was exactly what the Lord spoke to Jehu. Your descendants will sit on Israel's throne for 4 generations. And that's exactly what happened. He didn't tell them how long they would sit. And as you see here, he only ruled for 6 months, but that was enough to fulfill the promise that had been given and had been prophesied. So we have here in verse 13, Shalom, 1 month. He had 1 month as king and then was assassinated. And again, as I pointed out before, in Judah, it all belonged to the same family. Here we have small dynasties, not too often, but we have a few. They don't last long, and then we have these random guys that just become king. So Shalom, Jebesh's son, became king in the 39th year of Judah's king Uzziah. He ruled for 1 month in Samaria. And these guys get killed and all kinds of things happen. And then we have Menahem. Now he was 10 years, at least a little bit of stability here in Israel. And he actually died of natural causes instead of assassination. So Menahem, Gadi's son, became king of Israel in the 39th year of Judah's king Azariah. He ruled for 10 years in Samaria. He did what was evil in the Lord's eyes. Throughout his life, he didn't deviate from the sins that Jeroboam, Nebat's son, had caused Israel to commit. When Assyria's king Tiglath-Pileser marched against the land, Menahem gave Tiglath-Pileser 1,000 silver kikars in order to become his ally and to strengthen his hold on the kingdom. So that's not a good thing, just in case you're wondering. According to the world with alliances and such, this would be a very wise thing. But he was supposed to turn to Yahweh. He was supposed to cry out to Yahweh. And Yahweh would have rescued him as he had rescued previous kings. But instead, he relied on his own resources. And then we have Pekahiah. He's king for 2 years, and then he's assassinated. So Pekahiah, Menahem's son, became king of Israel in the 50th year of Judah's king Azariah. He ruled for 2 years in Samaria. He did what was evil in the Lord's eyes. He didn't deviate from the sins that Jeroboam, Nebat's son, had caused Israel to commit. So yeah, we go through these a lot. And then we have Pekah. He's king for 20 years, but he's assassinated. So Pekah, Remaliah's son, became king of Israel in the 52nd year of Judah's king Azariah. Pekah ruled for 20 years in Samaria. He did what was evil in the Lord's eyes. He didn't deviate from the sins that Jeroboam, Nebat's son, had caused Israel to commit. So these guys don't really accomplish very much. They become king, and it's about power and retaining power, and it's about riches, and that's about it. And then we see that Yahweh's just had enough. So he's downsizing Israel again. So in verse 29, in the days of Israel's king Pekah, Assyria's king Tiglath-Pileser came and captured Ijon, Abel-Beth-Makkah, Jonah, Kadesh, and Hazar. He also captured Gilead, Galilee, and the land of Naphtali. He sent the people into exile to Assyria. So this is the slow pecking away of Israel, of Israel's sources, strength, and riches. And then we have Jotham, king of Judah. He ruled for 16 years. Usually the kings of Israel ruled for a bit of time. This is short compared to many of the others, but it certainly isn't 6 months. So Jotham, Uzziah's son, became king of Judah in the 2nd year of Israel's king Pekah, Remaliah's son. Jotham was 25 years old when he became king, and he ruled for 16 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jerusha. She was Zadok's daughter. And Jotham did what was right in the Lord's eyes, just as his father Uzziah had done. But even now, these guys are not where they should be. Judah's not where it should be. Just because the king is a Yahweh worshiper doesn't mean all that the people are. There's lots of things going on in the land that the kings are not taking care of. And so we find here that Yahweh starts preparing Judah for the end. Where we're heading towards the prophets, the prophets who really deal with the deportation of Israel, and Israel being in deportation. And it's a lot of stuff that's about to come at us from the prophets. And we see here in verse 37, it was in those days that the Lord began to send Aram's king Rezin and Pekah, Remaliah's son, against Judah. So Israel's already been downsized. A lot of it has already gone into exile, and now it is Judah's turn in preparation. Now there's going to be some good kings that come in that will kind of prolong that, will delay that from happening. But really now the Lord's mind is made up on these matters. So we turn to the 2nd Chronicles now, and we're going to look at some of the details about King Uzziah. Okay, so in chapter 26, verse 5, we see some clarification here. We're told that Uzziah did good in the Lord's eyes, but 2 Kings really kind of gives a concise, kind of a Reader's Digest version, whereas Chronicles will give us a little more detail of these things. And so it's there's some definition here in verse 5. He sought God as long as Zechariah, who instructed him in the fear of God, was alive. And as long as he sought the Lord, God gave him success. So there's 2 things here. One, as long as Zechariah was there, he was for God. And as long as he sought the Lord, he met with success. So that kind of tells you something's coming, right? A little foreshadowing. And then we see that really, with Yahweh's help, he just becomes a military powerhouse. he's inspired here. Verses 7 and 8. God helped him against the Philistines, the Arabs who inhabited Gur, and the Munites. The Munites paid taxes to Uzziah, whose fame spread even to Egypt because he had grown so powerful. Why? Because God helped him. He was even inventive. The imagination that the Lord gave to him. He set up clever devices in Jerusalem on the towers and corners of the wall designed to shoot arrows on large stones. And so Uzziah's fame spread far and wide because he had received wonderful help until he became powerful. And then we find what happens quite often to people of power, and arrogance sets in. And within the arrogance comes the downfall. We've seen it many times already. Now, verse 16, but as soon as he became powerful, he grew so arrogant that he acted corruptly. But corruptly means he did what he wanted, not what God wanted. He was unfaithful to the Lord his God by entering the Lord's sanctuary to burn incense upon the incense altar. That's how big and important he considered himself. That he was eroding away the lines between king and high priest and head judge and perhaps even prophet. So in verse 19, then Uzziah, who had already had a censer in his hand, ready to burn the incense, became angry. While he was fuming at the priests, skin disease erupted on his forehead in the presence of the priests before the incense altar in the Lord's temple. So in 2 Kings, it refers to the skin disease that he had. But here we're given the reason why he had the skin disease. And he goes, now he has to go into hiding, and it's really his son who takes over as king and rules in his father's name. So, you start off well, and then you forget how you got there and started thinking it was all because of you, and instead of remaining humble. And there you go. That was the strength of David. David always remembered where he was from and what he actually deserved compared to the mercy that the Lord had given to him, the grace that the Lord had showed him. And and he remained humble, but these kings don't. Okay, well, you guys be blessed. Have an excellent day. Again, sorry for the mix up on the labeling, and we'll catch up with each other again tomorrow. God bless.